Krakow, somewhat. Alan, how many years ago? About 150, 200 years ago?
Not longer. This jump from the 1700s.
Wow. Okay, so many years ago, there was this guy by the name of Yossele, and he was a wealthy man, wealthy man, and he went and built this big house out in the corner of town. Wow. And obviously Jews around the town would come up to him and ask him for tzedakah, right? That's how it worked. He was a wealthy man, and they hoped that he would, help them as much as possible. So Jew after Jew, they come to his house and knock on the door. Yossele, can we come in? I have something to talk to you about. And he comes in, he brings them in, he sits down. Oh, it's so nice for you to come. Come in, please. Give them a bowl of soup, a cup of water, everything. Oh, what do you want? Oh, I wanted to know, I'm struggling, and my wife and 5 kids. I can't really, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm a carpenter. I can't really, I can't make that much, or someone else says, oh, I work, I'm a shoemaker, I can't make that much. Oh, okay, yeah, how much do you make? And he asks all these details, how many kids, what's your wife like, everything, right? And the man would tell him everything, and then finally he said, very interesting. Okay, now get out of here. Okay, get out of here. I'm not giving you any money. Stop mooching. Stop asking. Come on, what is this? What do you think this is, a freebie? Come on, what do you think? Get out of here, right? And all the Jews that would come, that's what he would do. He would egg them on a little bit. He would ask them what's going on, all right? How much are you making, right? How much this, how much that? He would give them a little bit of hope, only to then ask them to leave the house angrily. He would kick them out, and that was the end. At the end of his life, it was found out that Yossele was getting sick, right? The Rav and a few people from the community came to his house, knocked on his door, and they said, listen, it's time. You're going to the next world. You're not going to take your money with you. Give some to the community. We have poor people here. Please, something, right? And Yossele says, with whatever koach he has left, he's like, maybe I'll give you something. No, get out of here. Get out of here. I haven't given up until now. Nothing's going to change. And the Rav says, if you don't give us a little bit of money, a little bit of tzedakah, you're not going to be able to get buried within the community. He says, I don't care. Just get away from my face. Let me die alone. Just get away from me. So it is. They leave. Yossele passes away. And the town, nobody wants to bury him. Right? Literally nobody wants to bury him in the community. So they bury him around here. B'chol zot, he's Jewish. Right? Am I ruining the sound?
No, it's good.
It's good, right? Still? They bury him around here at the corner so that nobody can be next to him. All right, everyone's buried down there. I don't want to be buried next to Yossele. Nobody wants to have anything to do with him. Okay, let's bury him in the corner of the cemetery. B'chol zot, a little bit of kavod that we give him. So they bury Yossele after a few days that he was rotting there in his house. Nobody wanted to touch him. They buried him here in the corner, where we are now. 2 weeks pass by. 3 weeks pass by. And the Rav, again, Rav Steiners tells me it's rumored to be the Tosfos Yom-Tov. That's where we're standing now. I don't know if that's exactly, but whoever the Rav was of Krakow back then gets a knock on his door. And this poor man comes up to him and he says, Rav, I need some money. And he says, listen, okay, here, take 1 zloty, take 2 zloties, that's all I've got here. B'chavod, go. Okay, fine. The Jew goes away. 5 minutes later, he gets another knock on the door. And the Jew comes up to him, Rav, can I have some tzedakah? I'm down, I need some tzedakah, I need something, I need tzedakah, I'm poor. The Rav gives one zloty. Okay, fine, thank you. Right? The door knocks again, right? Every 3-4 minutes, right? Tons and tons of Jews start knocking at the rabbi's house, asking for tzedakah. And the Rav's like, what's going on here? Like, I don't understand. Like, well, out of nowhere. You know, everyone asking me for tzedakah. He couldn't give anymore. He didn't have any to give. Finally, one of the Jews, he says, "What's going on? Like, what do you want?" You're like, what all of a sudden? What's this? You know, everyone's been coming to me tonight. What is it? He says, the truth is, for years already, for 5 years, I've been getting an envelope every week with the exact amount of money that I need for that week. And truth is, I didn't ask any questions about it. I didn't know, but this is what I needed for my family, and that was it. And now, a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the envelope stopped coming. So the Rav is confused. Okay, fine, goodbye. Another Jew comes to his house. He knocks on the door. Same exact story. All right, I haven't been getting my money for the last 3 weeks. I usually got an envelope. So the Rav asks him, tell me something. How long has it been since you got your last envelope? It's like 3 weeks, exactly. 3 weeks. The Rav's starting to think, something's going on here. Something with Yosele passing away, something's going on here. He says to him, how long have you been getting money at your doorstep like that? So the second Jew says, 8 years. He says, what happened? How did this start? He's like, the truth is, I don't know. I was down, I was out of luck, I was out of business. I was really down. One day I asked Yosele, the miser they called him, right? Because he was, he wouldn't give any money to anyone. He was rich, I knew that, so I asked him for some money, and he asked me all these questions, right? He asked me all these questions about, how much money I need and what I make and how many kids I have and whatever. And then he kicked me out of his house and he yelled at me and he threw the soup into my face and he said, get out of here, I'm not going to give you anything. Anyway, as you guys have probably figured out by now, the Rav puts all the pieces together, asks all the poor people from the town what's going on. Turns out that Yosele, who they called Yosele the miser, right, was on such a high level, he didn't want anyone to know that he was the one giving these anim their money. And for years and years and years, Yosele would be giving all of his money to the poor people of the town, of the city here in Krakow. And the Rav said, Yosele, holy Yosele the miser, such a tzaddik, if this is who he is, I want to be buried here next to him. I want to be buried in the corner of the cemetery next to him, and that's why it's rumored that the Tosfot Yom Tov is buried over here, out in the corner at the end of the cemetery, near where Yosele is. But just one more piece of the puzzle, and this blew me away. Yosele, 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 Yosele. Right, Rav Shlomo Carlebach tells this story. He's at an interfaith conference, in 1972 or 73. Interfaith conference, and Jews, Christians, Muslims, all talking about their faith. 3-day conference, and Rav Shlomo, he's not sure what to talk about. And Rav Shlomo used to sing and he tried to get a deep message. So he said this story of Yosele the miser, right? What it's like to be a Jew, an old Jew in Krakow, to give your money away without anyone knowing, right? Matan beseter, right? We call it, right? When you give in seter, right? When nobody knows, it's the highest level of giving. The Rambam talks about it. And Shlomo Carlebach tells this story. Okay? At the end of the story, he gets off the stage, and there's crying. What? Everyone's crying. Everyone's into it, right? Everyone loves the story. But there's one guy, right? This bishop. He comes up to Rav Shlomo. He looks at him, and he's in shock. He's shocked. He looks at him in the eye and says to him, "Tell me something. Where'd you hear that story?" Rav Shlomo says, "Well, it's a famous Hasidic story of Krakow. This holy Yosele the miser." He says, "Can you do me a favor?" "Sure." Rav Shlomo says to him, "Sure, anything you want. Can you tell that story tomorrow at the second day of the conference?" So Rav Shlomo's like a little confused because he had just told the story. So what's it going to be to tell the story again? And he thinks about it a bit. He says, "Okay, I'll try to change it a little bit. I'll do something here and there." Anyway, long story short, the second day of the conference, Rav Shlomo gets up, and instead of speaking, he says the same story over again. He gets off the stage, right? Everyone again actually was into it, Baruch Hashem, right? Everyone loved the story again, to hear what it's like, to get inspired by Yosele the miser. He gets off the stage, and this bishop, right? He's got tears in his eyes. And he says to him, Shlomo, please, I'm begging you with all my heart. Tomorrow at the final day of the conference, please tell the story again. Please, I beg you, if you tell the story again, I'll explain everything. He says, okay. How could he say no? The poor guy is crying. This bishop, Christian bishop. So he tells the story on the third day of the conference, okay, and as much as he can to inspire everyone, and at the end of the story, the bishop comes up to him and he says, okay, I got to tell you what happened. And he's crying and he says, a few weeks ago, around a month ago, my mother passed away, and I'm sitting on her deathbed, right, and she says to me, Joe, I want you to know that you're a Jew. I'm Jewish. Your father hid me from the Nazis. Right? There's nothing I can do. Right? I stayed in his house. We got married. We had you. I swore I would never say anything about my Judaism, and I promised him the only way he would save me from the Nazis was if I never said anything, ever, to our children, that I'm Jewish, to anything like that, to anyone. But Joe, now that I'm dying, I have to tell you, you're Jewish, and not only are you Jewish, but a long, long time ago, in Krakow, Poland, all right, where I'm from, great-great-great-grandfather was a special man. His name was Yosele the miser. Buried in Krakow Cemetery, and she passes away. And Joe the bishop is shocked. His whole life, he's in the church, his whole life is flipped around and doesn't know what to do, and he sort of says to himself before this conference, if I hear anything about this story, he made a neder. If I hear this story 3 times about Yosele the miser, right, his mother told him the story about Yosele, he didn't believe her. He said, if I hear this story 3 other times, then I'll believe it. On that first day of that conference, when Rav Shlomo got up to tell that story, Joe the bishop's life was out of whack. He freaked out. He made Rav Shlomo say it 2 more times. And eventually Rav Shlomo and him worked it out that Joe the bishop would go to Yerushalayim to learn, to study Torah. He became a from Jew. And he sent a letter to Rav Shlomo 5 years later, right, saying, I'm in Yerushalayim, Yer HaKodesh, learning in the old city. Thank you for everything, love Yosele. Right, and in parentheses, Joe. And just one more thing, my friend told me this, that he was here leading a group. This was about 2 years ago. A friend of mine from Germany actually was leading a group here of Israeli kids. And he tells the story of Joe the bishop. And he continues the story and everything. And a regular frum girl like you guys said, that's my grandfather. Yeah, that's my grandfather.